All right, everybody, welcome to our own opening day here on Concrete Jungle, a New York baseball podcast. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in here. Appreciate everybody. Happy opening day. I am Paul Russo, coming to you live from the studios here at FingerLakes1.com, third floor of the North Park building. Joined alongside me, my fellow co-host, Kyle Evans, and behind the computer and desk handling everything on the production side, Nate Sharman. Happy to have both of you along here. Obviously, you'll be hearing a lot from me and Kyle, and Nate will be chiming in as well throughout the podcast whenever he has something to say or we toss it to him or anything like that. So appreciate you guys along for the ride here, Kyle. Happy opening day.
Yeah, I'm very excited to get this podcast going.
Yeah.
And, of course, it's opening day, which is one of my favorite days of the year. And it's unfortunate the Yankees got rained out today, and they're going to have to play tomorrow. But still, there's several games on, and I'm very excited.
Right. Yeah, certainly the case here. I agree with you. A little bit disheartening that, at least for us, you know, we are Yankee fans here, but that rained out. Obviously not the best weather, as is the case. So I thought that beginning of April would be rough. But
Yeah.
Nate, there you go, Nate.
As I was thinking, just as we were getting started here,
Yeah.
How many years has the opening day of the Masters and opening day of baseball happened? Because that's the opening day of the Masters is one of my favorite days of the year, for obvious reason, me being a big golf fan.
I'm sure it
happened before?
I'm sure it was probably more prevalent back before the MLB season became 162.
Okay, yeah.
And a much more what I'll call commercialized product. Obviously, we don't really have the numbers right in front of us,
Yeah.
but I'm assuming maybe it was probably something a little bit more common back in the day than maybe say within the past 25 to 30 or so years. So
okay, well,
it's a good
absolutely
point.
Love the Masters.
It's a good point you bring up though, because Masters. This is Masters week, Masters opening day, second weekend in April, as it always is. Well, outside of a couple of years ago, but that was everything. So, So I think. Yeah, that'd be an interesting set we would have to look up. But,
For sure.
So yeah, plenty to get to. Before we jump right into it, we'll give you a little bit brief synopsis of what the podcast is going to be. Obviously, Yankees and Mets, that's the two main ones, right? We're in New York. That's our bread and butter, so that's what we'll talk about with them. Everything kind of going in and out with them, previewing what they have ahead, looking back on what they've had the past couple days, going into each game. And then a cool segment that I will really enjoy because I'm just that much of a baseball goober. I really do love the minor leagues. So we also have what we're calling the On the Farm segment, if you will, with specifically the local teams to us here in the Finger Lakes area with the Rochester Red Wings and Syracuse Mets.
Yeah, it's pretty cool that we have two local teams
Right.
That we could go to games if we ever wanted to,
Right.
and they're pretty close.
Right. And obviously, if there's any major news, say with like the Yankees, because what's nice about the Mets is, right, when you think about it, their main two, their top two farm teams in AAA and AA, right? Obviously, the Syracuse Mets is their AAA team, but their AA team's right down in Binghamton. So, obviously, if anything happens like major with them, we'll discuss that. And same with the Yankees, even though their AAA team is down in Scranton, Wilkes-Barre, obviously, anything major happens there, we'll discuss that as well. But for the sake of today, doing the season previews for the Yankees, Mets, and then the Red Wings, Mets as well. So really looking forward to that. Kyle, why don't we want to jump right on in here? Start with the Yankees. So obviously the Yankees, bit of a 2021, simply put, a year of very high expectation, and did not go according to plan whatsoever. This off season was really one that I think as fans we were hoping would be much more of a, I wouldn't say maybe true. I think me accepting we won't ever have an off season quite like 08, 09 again, where we just go out and literally do the home run plays of, say, of Sabathia and a Burnett and a Teixeira, plus obviously the other guys at the time like Swisher and Xavier Nady. But I think, obviously really hoping that we would get, whether it was another top-end starter, or one of the shortstops, and none of it ended up coming into play at all.
Especially because it was a huge shortstop class.
Right.
And, many Yankee fans wanted Carlos Correa, and it took forever for him to actually, choose a place to go because of the lockout. And then when he did choose a place, everyone was very surprised because it was the Minnesota Twins.
Right. Well, I think part of that, too, is not to maybe go too far down that rabbit hole exactly, but I think, the only guaranteed year in that contract is this year, and then the other 2 are option years within that. So, but you bring up a good point. I think, the way, and I think obviously, the lockout plays a part in this as well, but the way that agents kind of attack free agency now, not so much the players, but, I mean, we see what Scott Boras has done. Obviously, groups like CAA, obviously now with like Rock Nation and the Jay-Z front with that as well, players going there. I don't think there's any major players yet with Rich Paul and LeBron's group yet, at least in the MLB, but I know they're making a play there. But they play a much more bigger role because you do see now it's not just lawyers involved, right? It's players or former players involved in that. And so I think it's going to make it, in that sense, make it a much more tougher situation for the Yankees moving forward, in my mind. But I think the positive is some of these guys did take shorter deals. Yep. I mean, obviously, Story didn't. I think that's what is that a 7-year or something like that deal. I mean, it's long enough that by the time he becomes a free agent again, might not be worth the squeeze anymore.
Honestly, I thought Corey Seager would have been the best fit,
right?
Just because like the short porch and right, he's a very good defender. But I mean, the Yankees are very high on their top prospect, shortstop Anthony Volpe. So.
Yeah, Volpe, as you mentioned, top prospect. He's starting the year in Double-A at Somerset, so it'll be interesting to kind of see how he progresses. We'll touch on the rest of those prospects here in a minute. Let's look at, I guess, the team that we currently have and looking at 2022 with them because
it's a very interesting one.
Yeah, this is – I don't think it reaches like that 2014, 2015 echelon of Yankees where you kind of have Lyle Overbay. And this isn't a shot at Lyle Overbay. I love Lyle Overbay, right? Yep. But where you have guys like Overbay – or like a Vernon Wells or like a Pedro Barbone kind of out there type scenario.
Yep.
But that being said, I don't think me or you or maybe even you, Nate, kind of thought at, the beginning of this offseason that, Marwin Gonzalez is the former Astro that's in Yankee pinstripes.
That's very true.
You know what I mean? So, like I said, it's a bit of a tough navigation, and I think this goes both, with the Yankees and obviously when we talk the Mets here in a few moments. Both divisions in the East this year, AL and NL East, you're going to see a lot of people beating up on each other. And with the Yankees roster, the way it's constructed, I don't know how this is going to play out for them. Now, that being said, really the only team in the East I feel like doesn't have a true shot is Baltimore. Yeah. They're the ones I can't I guess construct a possible way for them to get to the postseason. But that being said, I kind of lead on the AL East. I really do think Toronto, and in all honesty, for all the moves that they did make, I think Tampa Bay is going to still be there very much so at the top. It's tough because, like I said, I think, obviously we mentioned the shortstop. I wanted to see him do more with the pitching staff. They just really did not do that. They didn't do really either. Mm-hmm. They didn't upgrade at catcher per se. I think they stayed kind of solid ground with the trade for, well, not trade for really, but rather trading away Gary in that Donaldson deal, and Connor Falafa.
All around,
and it's just such a strange offseason, and the roster is just constructed in such a way I don't know what to really fully make of it.
Yeah, they definitely got better defensively, even at shortstop and behind the plate. But as for the offense, yeah, no one's like Gary Sanchez. The guy hits 30+ home runs a year. Right. But the problem with Yankee fans is they don't like how he strikes out a ton, but that could be said for a lot of other guys like Joey Gallo, Stanton.
I think my biggest gripe with Gary has always been just how lazy he is as a defender. I mean, catcher is a defensive plus position, as even I guess this very pedestrian baseball fans would know. It's a defensive plus position. I think I'd be able to accept his strikeout to homer to walk rate, whatever rate and ratio you want to go with it. I'd be able to accept that if he wasn't just a very lazy defender.
Yep.
That being said, it was weird at the pandemic year. He was, I think, second in frame rate for a catcher, which is just absurd when you think about Gary Sanchez.
Yeah, he had some good stretches, but most of the time, he wasn't very reliable defensively. And
right.
I actually believe that some pitchers didn't even like throwing to him. I mean, Garrett Cole apparently wanted Kyle Higashioka behind the plate. So.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Didn't Garrett, towards the end of the year last year, Garrett Cole wouldn't have Gary behind the plate. Is that correct?
Right.
Called Kyle Higashioka his personal catcher.
Higgy does a really great job. He's very, I saw one article put it, he's an old school catcher with a new skill set, and I certainly agree with that philosophy for the most part. He's very much so of that class that the Yankees had more or less drafting and trading in the early part of the 2010s, where you had him, obviously Austin Romine, and the guy that kind of gets forgotten about is John Ryan Murphy within that as well, where, none of them super excelled on offense. Really, their bread and butter was on defense. Very good defensive catchers. I mean, think about the stretch that Romine had a few years ago in 2019 before he walked in that deal. He was very much so a beating drum almost of the team.
Yeah. Had some very big hits with that team.
But yeah, that's the thing. I mean, offensively, he did what he had to do, and you could tell the pitching staff was comfortable with him.
Yep.
That's the key part in that.
And that's what you want.
Right. And I think that's, you mentioned you, Kyle, and you as well, Nate, how if you're aced, if your workhorse is going to the de facto backup catcher as who he feels most comfortable with, probably not a good thing.
Yeah, it's definitely not a good look.
So let's, for the Yankees here, just run down quickly a couple of the key. Obviously, we mentioned within that Sanchez trade, Donaldson and IKF, rule, the Flying Hawaiian. Nate? What would you call him there for the moment?
There's on Baseball Reference. There's a nickname for him. I think it was the Flying Hawaiian. I think you're right, Paul.
Well, Flying Hawaiian, I think is Shane Victorino.
We'll check on that.
Yeah, but I mean, Connor Falafa was kind of the guy that they were really targeting at the trade deadline last year and couldn't get from Texas. So it's interesting, obviously, there. No more Luke Voit. Yep. Kind of eased the logjam at first base a little bit. All Anthony Rizzo. And that's actually something I did want to discuss, too. At the Anthony Rizzo sign, everybody wanted us to pursue Freeman. I felt like I was in the minority. I didn't really necessarily want Freeman, just the years and the money he wanted. Mm-hmm. I was perfectly fine with Rizzo still. Certainly last year's kind of, if you look at the pay structure, very similar year to year to what Freeman's getting. But they're both similar in age. And just Rizzo's around for a short time. And to me, Rizzo and Freeman are still pretty equal players.
Very good defenders, both left-handed hitters.
Right.
So, yeah, pretty much the same player. Just Freeman would have been a lot more. And, I mean, I do think Freeman's better, but, I mean, they're like the same player, like you said.
Yeah, I do agree. I think Freeman's probably the better player, but I don't think it's by leaps and bounds the way some people kind of think.
Yep.
Which kind of leads to this. Obviously now, where does DJ LeMahieu go with the Gleyber Torres and Isaiah being around along with Donaldson? As you alleviate one blockade for the Yankees, you have another one kind of pop up.
Yeah, that was actually the biggest surprise to me.
Right.
The way the infield is now aligned after that trade with the Twins.
Right.
It's just now somebody has to sit. They have 5 infielders and only 4 spots.
Right.
So somebody's going to be the odd man out every day. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to take either Gleyber Torres or DJ LeMahieu's bat out of the lineup. And honestly, I know Gleyber struggled last year, but I think he's going to have a bounce back year, especially now that he's back at second and he's comfortable there.
Right. Yeah, I think it's something I think we were all in agreement on for the most part, right? Is Gleyber just is not a shortstop.
Yep.
Obviously, that was his billing coming up through the system and the deal with the Cubs and everything like that. But he's just not a shortstop.
We will see him there though still a couple times because Aaron Boone did say he is the backup. So
obviously, IKF will be at short, and then Donaldson will be at third for the most part. And then the outfield, pretty much the same thing. No Brett Gardner, as I'm calling it yet, which I don't want around anyway. But
I think there's still a chance eventually.
But yeah, we're looking at Gallo, Hicks, Judge, and they have Stan listed as a DH. But
I expect to see him.
I think he's going to be outfield. Honestly, he's a sneaky good defender. He doesn't make any errors out there. In fact, when he was in Miami, he was a Gold Glove finalist year in year out. I would personally feel plenty comfortable with him. In all honesty, probably him being in the field and Gallo being more at the DH.
Totally agree with that.
Are you worried about Stanton with injuries playing the field often, or?
I think the injury thing is, he hasn't had a debilitating injury now for the better part of about 3 years.
Yeah, it seems to be better when he's in the outfield.
Yeah.
Because he's not like sitting around and only getting one at bat every couple innings.
Right.
He's always moving, even when he's running out to a spot.
Mm-hmm. I think, you bring up a good point there. I think it's kind of an underrated or an undervalued thing being actually out there and running around. It's kind of the way I've always kind of felt about pitchers and pitch counts in a way. I understand it to a degree. You don't want a guy out there throwing 140 pitches. I'm completely on board with that. But if a guy's in the groove in the seventh inning,
don't pull him.
And he's at 85 pitches, don't pull him. There's a fine line between that, and I agree with that. I think it's a similar plane.
But that's more old school now, Paul.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, 2022 season for the Yankees. How there's a lot. They're at a crossroads. That's how I felt going into today. I was trying to figure out what's the best term for the team this year, and it really is crossroads. Aaron Judge can be a free agent at the end of the year. The way it's trending, they allegedly only have 25 hours and like 40 minutes to get an extension done because he doesn't want to do discussions past opening day or after opening day is over. So,
and it's been very quiet, reportedly.
Yeah. So I feel as though this team's at a crossroads.
It's going to be a very interesting year. Like, I'm actually excited for it because you just don't know really what you're going to get with this team.
Right. Yeah, I think they could go either way. They really could go either way. I think that's something, we mentioned at the beginning there of that and kind of wrapped up there. So the other team in New York take the Cross Bronx Expressway over into Manhattan and head over to Queens. We have the Mets. Different team with a different attitude compared to the Yankees, in my mind, this year. Uncle Steve was not afraid to spend money.
Yeah, they had a much, much better offseason than the Yankees did. Adding Max Scherzer was huge.
Yeah, and I wasn't even actually going to start with Scherzer. Obviously, I think that's the obvious one, but, there were a couple names that the Yankees were trying to go after that the Mets ended up getting. Notably to me, Chris Bassett and Starling Marte.
Yeah.
This is a team that look, like I said, I think the NL East is going to be very much as opposed to the AL East. I think there's a case for every team in the NL East to get to the postseason. I can see routes for every single one of them.
Yep.
Obviously, Miami, that's probably a little bit more of a stretch, but they're trending in the right direction. Obviously, the Braves, defending World Series champions. The Nationals, they're a funky constructed team. I will say that about the Nationals.
I think pitching is an issue with them.
But I could see them potentially making some sort of run. Obviously, the Phillies bolster lineup. Pitching's fairly middle of the road, I'll say, with them overall. But that lineup is tit for tat. I mean,
they're going to score a lot of runs.
There's no easy out for them. And then obviously the Mets. I mean, they are a team that, in my mind, I can't remember who exactly said it on Twitter, but they are the new headliner in New York for baseball. I think they just are. Obviously, you mentioned Scherzer. We haven't even gotten to don't even bring up like DeGrom anymore in a weird way, even though to me DeGrom is still the best pitcher in baseball, hands down. And Their starting rotation, to me, it. Obviously, people talk a lot about the front end of that rotation this year, and rightfully so, right? With DeGrom and Scherzer, you quite literally have 2 full-fledged aces on that team, and obviously we jokingly say that about some teams, how they could have 2 aces or 3 aces, or I think maybe the last time we could justifiably say that was maybe the Braves back in the day with Maddox, Schmaltz, and Glavine. This Mets team, you have 2 legitimate aces, and the guys after that. Sure, they're not aces, but you put them on other teams, their odds are they're probably going to be the second guy in that rotation, right? Obviously, Bassett could probably have made a case that he was the A's ace, in all honesty. Obviously, Cookie Carrasco, he's back for a full year, which is really fantastic to see overall in the grand scheme of things. And then, obviously, their opening day started with Taylor Miguel.
And even Taijuan Walker, he had a pretty solid year.
Exactly. I mean, Ty Walker's a very good pitcher, a guy that the Yankees tried to go after last offseason and couldn't get.
Although he is dealing with a knee injury right now, so we'll see how that goes.
Yeah, I know. I think they only have him listed as day-to-day right now, but
something to watch.
They'll be an interesting team, and what helps them is they don't necessarily need their prospects up right away. Oh, by the way, also Trevor Williams that they can use to start as well. So. What are your, the initial thoughts on them? Because like I said, I think they're the headliners this year in New York.
I think if they stay healthy, they're definitely a playoff team. And with their pitching, if their bullpen can be pretty solid as well, I think they could make a run in the postseason.
Right. So, obviously the other guy that they got in the A's, Mark Canha, kind of negates your need for Conforto. Conforto's still a free agent, or as Nate calls him, Kensuko, right? Something like that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. Just wanted to double check. I don't want to be tagged with that name. And it's interesting, the Mets, in my mind, are a very good team now with the universal DH, because now what helps is you have pretty much 3 guys you can choose from to be your DH on roster. Pete Alonso, who not the best defensively at first, but also if you were to put Dom Smith at first, not exactly the best defensively either. We'll get to him in just a second. Back from a full year-long suspension, Robinson Cano, which I don't know fully what their plan with him is yet.
I heard like first base sometimes.
Yeah, which I think you're going to see them just kind of cycle those 3 guys out and play him at DH. And then Dom Smith, who came on really great in my mind over the course of the past 18 months. Obviously the full year last year and then the shortened season in 2020. Obviously I don't think he's going to be quite that prospect that they thought he was going to be coming up. But that slightly watered down version of him, I would more than be happy to take if I was a Mets fan.
Absolutely.
So their opening day roster's nice. We keep talking about it a little bit here. Obviously, like we mentioned, they went out, they got their signings. To me, their biggest question mark may come at catcher. I'm a big James McCann fan, but if there was a glaring spot, I think it'd be catcher.
Yeah, I do agree with that. They're pretty strong at every other position.
Mm-hmm. So let's quickly look at their prospects, because like we mentioned at the top a little bit there, they have the direct pipeline with Syracuse and Binghamton, and really the Mets, the only team outside of New York State for them is their A club in St. Lucie, Florida, which is where they hold spring training. So you look at their top prospects, right? Francisco Alvarez, still probably 2 years away. He's going to be at Double-A, but he's a catcher. You never know there. Brett Beatty's at Double-A. Binghamton. They have a lot of their prospects stashed at Binghamton right now, and I think that's something to keep an eye on. This is where Double-A, you find out who's going to make it and who's not. Yep. Obviously, Single-A is where if you're remotely good, you're going to make some headway. Triple-A is where you got what I call usually your lifers for the most part. But Double-A is where if you're good, you're going to find out there. So it's going to be interesting to kind of see how things play out with the Mets at Binghamton this year. And then Matt Allen, their 5th best prospect, whenever he comes back, he'll be at Brooklyn to start the year the way it sounds. That's their high A club, or advanced A, I think it's technically called this year. Coming back from Tommy John. So it'll be interesting to see there. And then we'll talk about Mark Ventos. He's at Syracuse. He's their fourth best prospect. Another cat. I believe he's infield actually. So, yeah, I mean the Mets are in a really good spot.
Yeah, the future's looking really bright.
What's interesting as well. So let's actually go down their series with Washington here opening weekend, because they already have all their starters set and ready to go. Mm-hmm. It's a nice positive thing for them. Yep. Miguel's starting tonight against Patrick Corbin. That game's on SNY at 7:05. And then tomorrow night, Friday, this is a different discussion for a different podcast, this portion of it. 7:05 tomorrow night on Apple TV+. Max Scherzer versus a very good young pitcher in Josiah Gray for the Nationals. And then on Saturday and Sunday, both the Nationals are TBA on who they're going to be throwing. But Chris Bassett has the slab for the Mets Saturday night, 7:05 on SNY. And then Sunday afternoon at 1:35 on SNY, it's Cookie Carrasco for the Mets. That's a pretty good first four you're trouting out there.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's tough to sweep 4-game series period, especially if it's an opening weekend. How do you feel about them opening weekend here?
I actually see them taking 3 out of 4. Honestly.
That's what I was thinking. Yeah.
Like you said, 4 out of 4 is very tough.
Yeah.
3 out of 3 is more doable, but it's still tough. And you're on the road.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I'm thinking 3 of 4. It's interesting. I think they could lose tonight, opening night.
Yeah.
That's when I see the most plausible being out of any of them. Yeah. But I think the fact that we don't know who's throwing for the Nationals on Saturday and Sunday kind of hurt that a little bit, admittedly. All right. You want to get dirty? Let's go down to the farm. Personally, will probably end up being my favorite segment because I just love minor league baseball. All right, Kyle. Actually, I'll ask Nate this. Nate, East or West? If you had to pick a direction, East or West?
East.
All right, we're starting with the Syracuse Mets. Since they are east of us.
Let's start close to home.
Well, fun fact, Syracuse and Rochester are both pretty much equidistant from Seneca Falls. I think one's 52 miles and one's 53 miles.
Wow.
So
big difference there.
Huge. So Syracuse Mets, happy day for I'd say us baseball people out there. The AAA, and actually all minor leagues are back to their original league name. So the AAA East and West are back to being International League for the East and Pacific Coast League for the West. So Syracuse Mets and Rochester are both in the International League, both actually in the Eastern Division, as they usually are anyway, so that'll be fun to see. Manager Kevin Bowles, his first year in Syracuse managing the squad. Syracuse Mets went 50-75 last year. They have 8 Governor's Cups, which is the International League title. They have 8 of them, last one coming in 1976.
Wow.
And 1 Junior World Series, 1970. Notable people on the roster, obviously mentioned Mark Ventos. They have a couple other guys. Khalil Lee back in Syracuse to start the year. Nick Plummer, the 8th best prospect for the Mets, came over. I think they claimed him technically off waivers from the Cardinals. I remember him being in the Cardinals organization for a little bit. Name that might come out and strike chord with a few of us out here, Mike Montgomery, came over on a minor league deal. He's there. And then a couple other top 30 prospects also starting the year in Carlos Cortez, Josh Walker, Carlos Rincon, and Nick Meyer. The Syracuse team, obviously minor league baseball's already started. They started last Tuesday. Syracuse and Rochester both are kind of similar teams to me. I think one excels better at offense, other one just definitely brighter pitching-wise, but they both kind of have the same, vibe and kind of direction about them at the moment.
Yeah, I think they're actually going to finish with like a similar record.
Yeah.
I think they're both going to miss the playoffs, honestly, but we'll see what happens.
Both teams, Rochester's been part of the Copa La Diversión. Syracuse is now in on that, as well as they will be the Congresos de Syracuse. At the moment, they only have 3 dates announced this year, May 15th, July 14th, and September 8th. Run through a couple of their what I call cool promos, minor league baseball. The cool thing about them is obviously the promotions are really A1.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Thursday is the first game for the Red Wings, and they're doing a happy hour, discounted tickets, maybe, I think, and then some possibly discounted hot dogs too as well. So once the weather gets nice, I love going to those games. I went to a couple last year up in Rochester, and it's fantastic going to minor league games.
They're the best. It's the best, hands down. I know Syracuse every Thursday is their Buck night. I think Rochester's is technically Tuesday or something like that, but I could be wrong either way. The main
I know they do Bark in the Park too as well, which is cool.
Yeah, both teams do Bark in the Park. I'd recommend, at least for those nights where it's fairly regular promotions, just check their websites for that. But the cool ones that I've highlighted here, see if we can get some reactions out of you and Nate. You guys like superheroes? Well, Syracuse has 2 Marvel superhero nights in conjunction with a grand minor league thing on May 6th and July 16th. I believe Spider-Man will be at the May one and Iron Man will be at the July one. I'm more of a Spider-Man guy, but Pride Night on June 9th, Juneteenth celebration on June 30th. So I don't know if you guys saw, but every year on the opening night eve, as I call it, I'll share the Field of Dreams speech. People will come, right? People will come every year. And on July 30th this year, Dwyer Brown, who starred in Field of Dreams as Ray Kinsella's father, is going to be signing autographs and making an appearance on July 30th in Syracuse.
Oh, wow. That's really cool.
That Field of Dreams game last year in the MLB was pretty cool.
Right.
Definitely got to keep
doing it
doing
again this year.
Yep. Okay. Yankees involved again in that?
Nope.
No.
Okay.
No, I can't remember. I think it's Cubs and Twins or something like that, or Cubs and Brewers, something like that. I don't know if they're able to call it Office Night. I don't know if that was a copyright thing, but Leslie David Baker, who played Stanley, will be there on August 12th. And then us baseball fans, we know who Phil Reagan is, former Mets pitching coach. I think that was technically his last job. He's having a bobblehead night at Syracuse on August 13th. So looking forward to Syracuse making some trips up there. And then for the Rochester Red Wings, as I mentioned, International League East as well. Syracuse. I don't know if you guys were able to add two and two together, but Syracuse Mets affiliated with
the New York Mets.
Good job. Rochester Red Wings affiliated with the Washington Nationals. Manager Matt LeCroy, former MLB player, actually played in Rochester a little bit, back for his second year in the dugout for the Red Wings. 10 Governor's Cups for the Red Wings, last one coming in 97. Record last year of 49-77. Not as much top-end prospects on the Red Wings compared to the Mets, but the Nationals' number one prospect in Cade Cavalli is starting the year in Rochester.
And he's actually starting tonight.
Yeah, I was about to say that. And even though he's on the prospect list anymore, Luis Garcia is starting the year in Rochester as well. And then they have a couple lower-end guys there as well. Trace Berea's back catching. I'm guessing he'll be probably used on a taxi role this year with the Nationals again.
He's actually off to a good start.
Yeah.
Back-to-back multi-hit games to start the year.
And then Lucius Fox, who I remember coming up, was a big Royals prospect. He's got claimed off waivers by the Nationals, so he's starting the year in Rochester with them. Davin Casey making the jump from Double-A in Harrisburg last year, coming up to Rochester for Triple-A this year. And then there's a couple other guys that I just want to bring up because Rochester to me has always been, even in their Twins days, being affiliated with them, kind of having these major league experienced guys on the team. Tyler Clippard, Carl Edwards Jr., and Hunter Harvey out in the bullpen.
Some Yankees legends
right
there.
And Seth Romero, speaking of Yankee legends.
Wow.
And then also in, I guess, position player-wise, technically, Gerardo Parra is going to be in Rochester again to start the year, which is pretty interesting as well. Richard Urania, most notably, I'd say with Toronto is kind of where most people probably will recognize his name from. He's there as well. Andrew Stevenson, former Philly prospect, coming back over from the Nationals side. I think he actually technically started his career in the Nationals organization.
Pretty solid outfielder.
Yeah. And then I just want to give a shout-out to a guy who is back with Rochester, even though he's not on the 40-man, Jake Knoll. Yeah. Very solid player. and he's back again with Rochester this year. So I'm excited to see kind of what he can do as well. I did forget to mention, actually, with Syracuse, not to get too far off, but Daniel Palka is with Syracuse. Was with Rochester last year. So staying on the I-90 platform. Obviously, as I mentioned, Rochester part of the Copa de la Diversión. They are the Rochester Cocos Locos, and their 3 games scheduled at the moment there are May 22nd, July 26th, and September 2nd for that. Notable promotions for them. I did chuckle at the first one that really jumped out to me was the Jack Lynx Sasquatch is making an appearance this year on June 21st. So we finally get to determine if Bigfoot is real or not, I suppose, that night in Rochester. Iron Man will be at Frontier Field on June 24th, the Marvel Superhero Night for them. Negro League Night on June 25th. Rochester's office night, or you still work in the office, whatever they're calling it. But Kate Flannery, who played... I'm having a brain fart. This is not good. I like The Office, too. Meredith. There we go. Yes. She'll be there on June 29th. Having this a brain fart there. It happens. Pride Night on July 13th. On July 15th, speaking of baseball movies, Rookie of the Year. How do we feel about Rookie of the Year? You like it? Like it? Nate, you like it?
It's a good one, yeah.
Well, Henry Rodengartner will be there on July 15th. I forget his name in real life, but he'll be there on July 15th. And then the Rochester Philharmonic Orchestra will be there performing on July 16th. So if you like live performance music, and the Philharmonic Orchestra is really great, they'll be there. Obviously, Nate mentioned opening night on the 12th, next Tuesday, against Buffalo at 6:05. And then I have to give a shout-out here for Bat Dog Milo. Coming back this year. At the moment, 5 scheduled appearances for our beloved good boy on May 21st, June 25th, July 30th, August 13th, and September 17th.
A lot of special nights between the two teams.
Yeah, and then obviously, especially these two teams, because Rochester and Syracuse, obviously, you can throw Buffalo into the mix as well, obviously, further down on I-90. They always battle for what's called, I think, the I-90 Cup, but they've also added the past couple of years the food fight, which is fairly interesting. So obviously, I think it's Thursday home games for Rochester. In years past, they've been the Rochester plates.
Oh yeah, I think that's still going on, isn't it?
Okay, that was going to be my next question. Are they doing that this year?
Syracuse Mets become the Syracuse Salt Potatoes. I believe it's every Saturday, or no, not every Saturday home game anymore, because they were going to Salt City Mets then. I forget what day they're doing the potatoes, and then I don't know the Bisons, but they become like the Buffalo Hot Wings or something like that. For
Kyle, do you know
games.
if Josh Allen's throwing out the first pitch at all? I know he did last year.
I don't think he's going to this year, but yeah, it was cool last year.
It was pretty cool last year, and seeing him next to Vladdy Jr.
Right.
Yeah.
They were taking some pictures together
and
talking together. two very large humans and two very large humans to their respective organizations as well.
Right. But I'm not too sure, but you can look up the dates on the promo calendar there for that. For when it's pretty much the food fight. Each teams will be wearing their special jerseys, and that's the cool part about minor league baseball, right? You go to Rochester, and one of my favorite things is eating a trash plate in the stands. Shout out George. I don't know if people can hear him, but yeah. So that's what we're looking for. Oh, we forgot to provide the Yankees this weekend against the Red Sox. Friday, tomorrow, 1:05, Nathan Eovaldi versus Garrett Cole on Yes.
Yeah.
And then Saturday, 4:05, it's Nick Pivetta for the Red Sox against, we're assuming, Luis Severino for the Yankees. That game's on Yes and FS1, apparently. And then on Sunday night, ESPN at 7:08, Tanner Hawk versus technically TBA for the Yankees. Kyle, who'd you hear?
Likely Jordan Montgomery. So...
All right, so that wraps up opening day for us here on Concrete Jungle. So we are scheduled every Monday and Thursday here throughout the regular season. Thursdays will be at 11 a.m. just like today. Next Monday, we're planning for 9 a.m. We're going to do 9 a.m. because that's when it works best for us, and we we're busy in the FingerLakes1.com studios. We have to be honest with you. We just the amount of content we produce and the great content we got, it happens.
Hopefully we can get Kyle out of bed by 9 o'clock and here in the studio.
Yeah, it's going to be a slight problem for you.
Hey, it's baseball talk. I'll be here on
That's
time.
true. No, Kyle never misses the baseball talk. And credit to Kyle Evans. Earlier in the week, we were talking about recording today, and he said, we can record at 11 o'clock, and because the Yankees aren't going to play today, and news comes out that the Yankees moved to tomorrow.
Nostradamus over here, eh? What are the lotto numbers?
I'm a weather guy.
Oh, okay. Fair enough. So, yeah, make sure you come back with us here on Monday, 9 a.m. We'll recap the weekend for the Yankees and Mets, preview the midweek stuff ahead. Make sure you catch us live on YouTube, and then you can check us out on all major podcasting platforms to give a listen to afterwards. For Kyle Evans, I'm Paul Russo. Everybody, Finger Lakes One. Thanks to our producer, Nate Sharman. Happy opening day, everyone. Enjoy the weekend, and we will see everybody here next Monday for Concrete Jungle, New York Baseball Podcast.